The House will come to order. Please join Representative Mike Lynch in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Gregorio, please call the roll.
Representative Amabile. Representative Amabile.
Excused.
Representative Amabile is excused. Arndt. Bacon. Baisley. Representative Baisley. Representative Baisley is excused. Benavidez.
Here.
Burnett. Byrd. Representative Byrd. Representative Byrd is excused. Bockenfeld. Bradfield. Caraveo. Carver. Catlin. Cutter. Doherty. Duran. Escar. Exum. Froelich. Geithner. Gonzalez Gutierrez. Gray. Representative Gray. Representative Gray is excused. Hanks. Harrod. Representative Harrod. Representative Harrod is excused. Holtorf. Representative Holtorf. Representative Holtorf is excused. Hooten. Jackson.
Here.
Judah. Kennedy. Kipp. Larson. Representative Larson. Representative Larson is excused. Lontine. Luck. Representative Luck. Representative Luck is excused. Lynch. McCluskey. McCormick. McKean. McLaughlin.
Present.
Michael Sinjane. Mullica. Neville. Ortiz. Pelton. Pico. Ransom. Rich. Ricks. Roberts. Sandridge. Sirota. Snyder. Soper. Here. Sullivan. Tipper. Titone. Valdez A. Valdez D. Van Bever. Van Winkle. Weissman. Will. Williams. Woodrow. Roog. Young. Representative Young. Representative Young is excused. And Mr. Speaker.
With 62 present, 3 excused, we have a quorum. Representative Lynch.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the Journal of Friday, April 9th, 2021 be approved and corrected as corrected by the Chief Clerk.
Members, you have heard the motion that the journal be approved as corrected by the Chief Clerk. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes, for everyone listening in and in the gallery, the ayes clearly have it. The motion is adopted. Announcements and introductions. Representative McCluskey. And Representative Pelton. Members, we have a tribute. Representative McCluskey.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a tribute that I ask be read at length.
House of Representatives, convened in the 73rd General Assembly, hereby acknowledge and honors National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week. National Public Safety Telecommuters Week was first conceived by Patricia Anderson of the Colorado Costa County, California Sheriff's Office in 1981. In 1994, it was formally recognized and is celebrated each year during the second full week of April to coincide with National 911 Education Month. Throughout the COVID crisis and historic wildfire season, Colorado's 911 professionals have been there for our state 24/7. They have prioritized the public's health and safety, even over their own, by continuing to work in close quarters, often without access to vital personal protective equipment, and some even losing their own homes to fires. They have dealt with constantly changing emergency response protocols and surges in calls of domestic violence, mental health crisis, and serious at-home illness. They have navigated quarantine-induced staffing shortages, and in most communities, no ability to work from home. Like other first responders, they have sacrificed and persevered so that when anyone dials 911, someone is there to help. On any given day, 911 telecommunicators are called upon to provide emergency medical instructions and to help those in need. They work with colleagues to coordinate the activities of police, fire, and emergency medical crews dealing with active shooters, natural disasters, and other deadly hazards. They require highly specialized training and skills, and they perform uniquely stressful and valuable work. Today, we recognize these men and women and thank them for their exceptional dedication and service. On request of Representatives Julie McCluskey and Rod Pelton, given this 12th day of April 2021, State Capitol, Denver.
Representative McCluskey.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, members. You know, the three numbers we learn earliest when there is an emergency is 911. And we grow up with that, and God forbid we ever have to use it. I have in my lifetime. And in that moment, when you need a connection, you need that human connection to help in an emergency, that voice can mean a great deal, both to your own mental wellness and health, but also for what comes next and accessing the help that you need in that moment. I am so proud that last year we carried legislation to fund our PSAPs, our 911 call centers, with the money that they need to upgrade technology to be more responsive to all of us and Coloradans across the state. But they are the unsung heroes in the public safety emergency response process, and today we lift them up and thank them for their extraordinary help. I want to introduce some of our visitors here with us today, representing the amazing 911 communities across the state. We have Sherry Klein from Aurora 911, Dora Maestas from Thornton 911. Please stand. We have Jennifer Marquez from Arapahoe Sheriff's 911, Sarah Slaver, South Metro Fire 911, and Kelly Hernandez from ADCOM 911, and Jackie Marie Louise, our contact to the 911 task force. Thank you all.
Representative Pelton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And 911 is something we need, and it's something that you may never use, but it needs to be there for the time that you need it. I was very pleased to be on that bill last year with Representative McCluskey, and that was a big bill. That was a tough one. But we got it passed, and it's a good deal because these 911 call centers, there's a lot of dollars worth of equipment in there, and there's sometimes bills come out of this building that you have to upgrade them, and it costs a lot of money. So this is a great system. We need it, and thank you for having us.
Thank you all very much for your service and welcome to the People's House. Further announcements and introductions. Representative Bockenfeld.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's an honor to serve with you.
Honor to serve with you as well, Representative Bockenfeld.
Members, last night at 7:16 p.m., Mia Claire Bockenfeld was born. She's my sixth grandchild and fourth granddaughter. We don't know her party affiliation yet. We're usually able to determine that before she turns 5. If the members to the left here are the right criteria, they tell me if she's warm and fuzzy, she's a Democrat. If she's cold and crusty, she's a Republican. I'm hoping for cold and crusty. Thank you.
Congratulations to the whole Bockenfeld family. There's no doubt she's warm and fuzzy. Representative Byrd.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And members, if it's Monday, it's finance. We'll be meeting today at 1:30 in Committee Room 112, hearing House Bill 1145, 1039, 1024, and 1163. We'll see you soon.
Representative Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members of House, State, Civic, Military, and Veterans Affairs will be meeting at 1:30 in LSBA to hear Senate Bills 144 and 77.
Mayor-elect.
Members, if it's Monday, it's also Ag, Livestock, and Water Committee, and we will hear one bill today, Senate Bill 21-135. See you at 1:30 promptly.
Further announcements and introductions. Representative Byrd.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So one correction to the schedule for House Finance today. For anyone who was interested in House Bill 1163, that is going to be laid over. So House Bill 1163 will not be heard today. It will be laid over.
Okay, next order of business. Third reading of bills. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title of House Bill 1056.
House Bill 1056 by Representative Pelton, also Senator Hansen, concerning public projects supervised by the Department of Transportation that are subject to the Construction Bidding for Public Projects Act.
Majority Leader Escar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move for the passage of House Bill 1056 on third reading, final passage.
The question before us is the passage of House Bill 1056 on third reading and final passage. Seeing no further discussion, Mr. Gregorio, please open the machine, and members, please proceed to vote. For those participating remotely, Representative Jackson, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Jackson votes yes. Representative Baisley, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Baisley votes yes. Representative Soper, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Soper votes yes. And Representative McLaughlin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative McLaughlin votes yes. Bockenfeld, Carver, Gatlin, Geithner, Lynch, McKean. Oh, great. We'll give Lynch a quick second. He was, I think, meeting with our visitors today. And with that hustle, you will avoid a fine, Representative Lynch. Please close the machine. With 56 aye votes, 8 no votes, and 1 excuse, House Bill 1056 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title of the Senate Bill 40.
Senate Bill 40 by Senator Scott and Gonzalez, also Representatives Rich and Roberts, concerning the use of a person's driver's history record to make decisions that concern the practice of an occupation.
Majority Leader Escar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move for the passage of Senate Bill 40 on third reading, final passage.
The question before us is the adoption of Senate Bill 40 on third reading and final passage. Seeing no further discussion, Mr. Gregorio, please open the machine, and members, please proceed to vote. Representative Jackson, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Jackson votes yes. Representative Baisley, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Baisley votes yes. Representative Soper, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Soper votes yes. Representative McLaughlin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative McLaughlin votes yes. Representative Arndt, Catlin, Gray. Please close the machine. With 63 aye votes, 1 no vote, and 1 excuse, Senate Bill 40 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title of the House Bill 1132.
House Bill 1132 by Representatives Amabile and Baisley, also Senator Story, concerning authorized distributions from the Local Government Limited Gaming Impact Fund.
Majority Leader Escar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move for the passage of House Bill 1132 on third reading, final passage.
Question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1132 on third reading and final passage. Seeing no further discussion, Mr. Gregorio, please open the machine, and members, please proceed to vote. Representative Jackson, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Jackson votes yes. Representative Baisley, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Baisley votes yes. Representative Soper, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Soper votes no. Representative McLaughlin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative McLaughlin votes yes. Please close the machine. With 47 aye votes, 18 no votes, and 0 excused, House Bill 1132 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title of the House Bill 1227.
House Bill 1227 by Representatives Lontine and Soper, also Senator Fields, concerning medical assistance program requirements for nursing facilities and in connection therewith establishing a demonstration of need.
Majority Leader Escar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move for the passage of House Bill 1227 on third reading, final passage.
The question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1227 on third reading and final passage. Seeing no further discussion, Mr. Gregorio, please open the machine, and members, please proceed to vote. Representative Jackson, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Jackson votes yes. Representative Baisley, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Baisley votes no. Representative Soper, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Soper votes yes. Representative McLaughlin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative McLaughlin votes yes. Madam Majority Leader. Representative Gray, Representative Woodrow. Please close the machine. With 43 aye votes, 22 no votes, and 0 excused, House Bill 1227 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title of the House Bill 1016.
House Bill 1016 by Representatives Ortiz and Lynch, also Senators Garcia and Gardner, concerning the authority to transfer jurisdiction of a veteran defendant's case to a jurisdiction with a veteran specialty court.
Majority Leader Escar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move for the passage of House Bill 1016 on third reading and final passage.
The question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1016 on third reading and final passage. Seeing no further discussion, Mr. Gregorio, please open the machine, and members, please proceed to vote. Representative Jackson, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Jackson votes yes. Representative Baisley, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Baisley votes yes. Representative Soper, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Soper votes no. Representative McLaughlin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative McLaughlin votes yes. Please close the machine. With 60 aye votes, 5 no votes, and 0 excused, House Bill 1016 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Representative McLaughlin, Jackson, co-sponsor. Please close the machine. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title of the House Bill 1211.
House Bill 1211 by Representative Amabile, also Senator Lee, concerning regulations for restrictive housing in local jails.
Majority Leader Escar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move for the passage of House Bill 1211 on third reading, final passage.
Representative Bockenfeld.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill increases cost on local governments. It also increases potential harm to law enforcement officers and the other inmates. Lastly, it increases legal liability and drives up insurance costs on local governments. I ask for a no vote.
Is there any further discussion on House Bill 1211? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1211 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Gregorio, please open the machine, and members, please proceed to vote. Those participating remotely, Representative Jackson, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Jackson votes yes. Representative Baisley, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Baisley votes no. Representative Soper, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Soper votes no. Representative McLaughlin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative McLaughlin votes yes. Representative Judah. Please close the machine. With 40 aye votes, 25 no votes, and 0 excused, House Bill 1211 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Representative Jackson, co-sponsor. Please, it doesn't look like, yeah, great, no problem. Please close the machine. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title of House Bill 1220.
House Bill 1220 by Representative Froelich, also Senator Fields, concerning implementing recommendations of the Colorado Child Support Commission.
Majority Leader Escar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move for the passage of House Bill 1220 on third reading, final passage.
Question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1220 on third reading and final passage. Seeing no further discussion, Mr. Gregorio, please open the machine, and members, please proceed to vote. Representative Jackson, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Jackson votes yes. Representative Baisley, how do you vote? Sorry, try one more time. I heard that one. Representative Baisley votes yes. Representative Soper, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Soper votes no. Representative McLaughlin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative McLaughlin votes yes. Please close the machine. With 51 aye votes, 14 no votes, and 0 excused, House Bill 1220 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Representative McLaughlin, Jackson, co-sponsor. Please close the machine. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title of the Senate Bill 107.
Senate Bill 107 by Senator Danielson, also Representatives Young and McLaughlin, concerning the Carrie Ann Lucas Parental Rights for People with Disabilities Act.
Majority Leader Escar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move for the passage of Senate Bill 107 on third reading, final passage.
Question before us is the adoption of Senate Bill 107 on third reading and final passage. Seeing no further discussion, Mr. Gregorio, please open the machine, and members, please proceed to vote. Representative Jackson, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Jackson votes yes. Representative Baisley, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Baisley votes yes. Representative Soper, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Soper votes no. Representative McLaughlin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative McLaughlin votes yes. Catlin, Sandridge, Van Beber. Please close the machine. With 52 aye votes, 13 no votes, and 0 excused, Senate Bill 107 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Representative Jackson, co-sponsor. Please close the machine. Closed. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title of the House Bill 1245.
House Bill 1245 by Representative Sullivan, also Senator Janal, concerning the inclusion of on-track equipment and certain safety provisions that regulate railroad crossings.
Majority Leader Eskar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move for the passage of 1245 on third reading, final passage.
Question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1245 on third reading and final passage. Seeing no further discussion, Mr. Gregorio, please open the machine and members, please proceed to vote. Representative Jackson, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Jackson votes yes. Representative Baisley, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Baisley votes yes. Representative Soper, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Soper votes no. Representative McLaughlin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative McLaughlin votes yes. Bockenfeld, Carver, Catlin, Geithner, Larson, Ransom, Will. Please close the machine. 57 aye votes, 8 no votes, and 0 excuse. House Bill 1245 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title of House Bill 1249.
House Bill 1249 by Representatives Roberts and Michelson Janay, also Senators Rodriguez and Smallwood, concerning the repeal of a requirement that the state auditor conduct audits of the portion of the limited gaming fund that is transferred to the state historical fund for the preservation of certain gaming cities.
Majority Leader Eskar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move for the passage of House Bill 1249 on third reading, final passage.
The question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1249 on third reading and final passage. Seeing no further discussion, Mr. Gregorio, please open the machine and members, please proceed to vote. Representative Jackson, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Jackson votes yes. Representative Baisley, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Baisley votes yes. Representative Soper, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Soper votes no. Representative McLaughlin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative McLaughlin votes yes. Representative A. Valdez. Please close the machine. With 56 aye votes, 9 no votes, and 0 excuse, House Bill 1249 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title of Senate Bill 117.
Senate Bill 117 by Senator Moreno, also Representative Michelson Janay, concerning consistent procedures between schools and county departments of human services related to students in out-of-home placement.
Majority Leader Eskar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move for the passage of Senate Bill 117 on third reading, final passage.
The question before us is the adoption of Senate Bill 117 on third reading and final passage. Seeing no further discussion, Mr. Gregorio, please open the machine and members, please proceed to vote. Representative Jackson, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Jackson votes yes. Representative Baisley, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Baisley votes yes. Representative Soper, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Soper votes yes. Representative McLaughlin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative McLaughlin votes yes. Please close the machine. With 65 aye votes, 0 no votes, and 0 excused, Senate Bill 117 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Representative Jackson, Representative McLaughlin, co-sponsor. Please close the machine. And the next order of business on the calendar is General Order, second reading of bills. Representative Ricks. You have heard the motion. Seeing no objection, Representative Ricks will take the chair.
The House will come to order. The committee will come to order. With your unanimous consent, the bills will be read by title unless there is a request for reading a bill at length. Committee reports are printed in your bill folders, and your floor amendments will be shown on the screen and on your iPads. Bills will be laid over upon motion of the majority leader. The court rule is relaxed. Mr. Gregorio. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to lay over Senate Bill 123, one bill.
Mr. Gregorio, please read the title to Senate Bill 123.
No.
150, still Senate Bill 59.
Senate Bill 59 by Senators Lee and Gardner, also Representatives Gonzalez, Gutierrez, and Geithner, concerning the reorganization of the Juvenile Justice Code and Article 2 of Title 19 Colorado Revised Statutes by the Colorado Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention Council, as authorized by House Joint Resolution 181013.
Representative, Assistant Majority Leader. Geithner, sorry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, I move the committee report and Senate Bill 59.
To the committee report. To the committee report.
To the committee report.
Go ahead.
Assistant Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, in committee, we did make some, at least one amendment, mostly just renumbering subsections and defining some of the sections. And then some additional definitions were added, just for clarity. I ask for an aye vote on the committee report.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of Senate Bill 59.
No. Committee report. The Judiciary Committee report.
Oh, the Judiciary report. Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of the Judiciary report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The committee report passes. To the bill. Madam Assistant Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, this bill comes to us after 5 years in the making through the Colorado's Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention Council, where they have the Children's Code Committee. The Children's Code Committee has been working on essentially reorganizing the Children's Code as it relates to juvenile delinquency. And so there's a couple of things that this includes. It's now, it will add section 2.5, which provides new section labels and additional parts, has a general provision section, also modernizes Article 2's overall and sentence structure to align with the Colorado Revised Statutes format, and timeframes are now consistent and follow the standard Rule of 7 format.
Representative Geithner.
Thank you. And further, just a little bit more, members, what Senate Bill 59 does is, I think, the most important piece that needs to be identified is it reorganizes the juvenile code specifically for, or not specifically for, but also to the benefit of those families that are pro se families, those families that are representing themselves. And so with that, members, a completely technical bill, just restructuring Senate Bill 15, or I'm sorry, the juvenile section, and I would ask for a yes vote.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of Senate Bill 59. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Senate Bill 59 passes. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title of Senate Bill 66, or 123.
Senate Bill 123 by Senators Janal and Coram, also Representatives McCormick and Lynch, concerning expanding the Canadian prescription drug importation program to include prescription drug suppliers from nations other than Canada upon the enacting of the legislation by the United States Congress authorizing such practice.
Yeah. So, yeah, you have to move it.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's a pleasure to serve with you.
It's a pleasure to serve with you. Representative Lynch?
Ma'am, I move Senate Bill 123. There is no committee report.
Okay. To the bill. Representative McCormick?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senate Bill 123 is a bill that will allow the expansion of the Canadian drug importation program that this body passed in 2019. And it will allow importation of FDA-approved medications not only through Canada, but other nations such as the United Kingdom, France, Australia, enabling us as Coloradans to get the same exact medications for lower prices. The expansion to other countries will also allow us to have a greater return on investment on the structure that we've already put in place through the Canadian importation program. And it will also enable us to open a larger supply chain to import these common brand name drugs for Coloradans. On the issue of safety and quality, this is a completely the same, almost the same process as far as the importation of FDA drugs from FDA facilities that are already being made in other countries. 80% of all the ingredients of the medications that we already have are made outside of our country, and 60% of the entire finished medication that come into our country come from outside our country. I urge an aye vote.
Representative Lynch?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Initially I had some hesitation about getting on with this bill because it seems a little hard to accomplish this, and we've tried this in years past. I will tell you that it's got a few things that I was concerned about that my fears were put away. One, this is not an expansion of there's no fiscal note attached to this. All this is doing is changing the rules so that we can be one of the first in the nation. Once the feds approve us, be one of the first states in the nation to actually be able to do a good thing for our senior citizens and for those that are in need of drugs, and allow us to reduce their cost of drugs that they need every day to stay alive. The other issue is safety. There is actually an additional measure of inspection that goes into these drugs, in addition to the fact they must be coming from FDA-approved labs, and then as they come across the border, there is another level of safety that's put into this. This can do some really good things for those that need drugs in the state, and I would encourage an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion? Representative Bockenfeld?
Representative Ricks, it's an honor to serve with you.
It's an honor to serve with you as well.
Folks, I voted for the original bill. Let me tell you why. This is a Republican bill. How can I say that? The concept was developed by Governor Ron DeSantis, a governor of Florida. And in order to accomplish what he wanted to accomplish, by bringing the Canadian drugs in, he had to get a waiver from the President of the United States, who happened to be Donald Trump. Our governor piggybacked off of what Governor DeSantis was doing. This is not a Governor Polis bill. This is a Republican bill, and Republicans need to respect it. The reason the Canadians are selling drugs at a lower cost to us is because our pharmaceutical companies aren't adding the research and development cost. They're coming out of the same factories here in the United States. Canada's buying the drugs from our factories without the R&D component added onto it. When we buy them back and we lower at a lower cost, we're creating competition in the pharmaceutical industry. That's why this bill exists, and I would ask Republicans to please consider voting for the bill. It's a Republican bill. Thank you very much.
Is there any further discussion? Representative Holtorf.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
I'm not going to label this bill a Republican or Democrat bill, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to call it a good bill. And here's why. And I frankly don't give a tinker's damn about where it comes from. When you help lower prescription drug costs for Americans, and that is an objective for so many people, regardless of party, I believe this bill allows for that and moves in that direction. Now, you can have the merits of debate, and I will tell you one of the struggles that I do have as we work towards lowering our healthcare costs and our pharmaceutical costs. And I'm going to give you a little example. Let's say out at the ranch we put up a mill, because we're going to feed some cattle, and I like feeding cattle. I'm a third-generation cattle feeder, and that mill is going to cost me $1 million. But I can pay for that mill in 5 years. So I pay for that mill in 5 years. And I've built in my charges to allocate for paying for that mill. But then when that mill gets paid for, guess what I may never do? I may never take away that upcharge. Even though the initial sunk cost has been remedied in the business, I get comfortable with that extra, and I just let that go as profit. Now I'm going to take that little simple country story and correlate it to R&D costs. How long do Americans have to pay for research and development costs of a pharmaceutical drug? Is the answer indefinitely? Is the answer forever because we have the markup and we think the market will bear it, and the consumer gets stuck with the additional cost? Now, I'm not a person that likes government meddling in business any more than they have to. But I will tell you, oftentimes, there are some disparities out there. And if we can use free market economics to level the playing field and competitiveness worldwide competition, to level the playing field of those costs, then some of the U.S. businesses and pharmaceutical companies might get put on notice and say, hey, I want to be competitive, so I am going to lower the costs. And I'm not going to be able to say I'm still trying to recover R&D costs, because that's subjective. That's a very subjective decision, how long those R&D costs take to be recovered, and then how long you pass that on to the consumer. And make no mistake about it, ladies and gentlemen, you are now witnessing in the pharmaceutical climate in America today the pass-through of costs. So we should do everything in this chamber to try to lower that burden so costs can be lower. I can extrapolate that to the cost of beef in your supermarkets, because I think as a cattle rancher and cattle feeder, I want the consumer to have the best product they can have at the lowest cost we can deliver, with everybody in that chain, that production and supply and distribution chain, making a profit. Not gouging people and getting filthy rich, like some things that happen in the pharmaceutical sector, but rather making a good, honest living for everybody in that chain. And that's the lesson that I deliver, and I do correlate this somewhat to this, because this does, I believe, according to the bill sponsors, does balance and provide for healthy competition on a worldwide scale. But here's my challenge for all the people in this chamber. Sincerely, let's take this type of a model and carry it to all the other things that we do, because the lessons are the same, the fundamentals are the same, and the benefit at the end is for the consumer. It doesn't matter if it's a cheeseburger at McDonald's or it's your rheumatoid arthritis pharmaceutical drug that you have to take to control your pain because you have rheumatoid arthritis, and it's unbearable for you every day. So thank you, bill sponsors, for bringing this, and I will be in support of this effort.
Madam Chair.
Is there any further discussion?
Madam Chair. Madam Chair.
Oh,
No.
Wrong. Okay, sorry.
Madam Chair, am I recognized? I'm sorry, I didn't hear if I was.
Is that Hank?
No, that's Representative Baisley.
No, over there,
Yeah,
in the front.
Kara.
Representative Baisley, you cannot,
Thank you, Madam.
no, you cannot enter into this debate because you're remote.
Oh, all right.
Thank
I thought
you.
as a ranking member of that committee that heard it, I would, but all right, I'll hold my tongue. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Representative Hanks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was on the committee that listened to this bill and had a few notes on it I wanted to share. This bill requires the feds to act first, and as noted in the committee, Colorado and Florida are kind of working to try to predict what the federal government's going to do. Florida got ahead of itself and had to pull back all of the legislation that it put in place. And so my argument here is, you know, everybody wants lower drug prices. Doesn't matter what party you're in. Everybody wants lower gas prices for the most part. But this is kind of an effort that puts the cart before the horse. I don't think it's good legislative policy to guess what the federal government is going to do, because we may have to pull it back as Florida did. So I'm a no on this until the feds send us something to work with, and when they do, let's talk about it again. Thank you.
Representative Lynch.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you, Representative Hanks, for those concerns. This is, I agree, we are getting some legislation in place that will be in preparation for the feds to come into alignment. However, we're not in session again until June, or until January. And if this happens, which is predicted in the next few months, this will put us in a position to take advantage of this program sooner than later.
Representative Pico.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to express a cautionary note here. The primary advantage of overseas companies to be able to export is that they're not paying back those research and development costs. If this goes too far, then those research and development costs, if pharmaceutical companies not able to pick those up, they'll stop doing research and development. So there's a cautionary note there about how far you take this. We could end up drying up the supply. Now, I don't want to stand here and defend the pharmaceutical companies. They've kind of overstepped a few places, but let's be a little careful about how we go down this path.
Representative McCormick.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I just wanted to clarify a little bit more about the horse being before the cart. This is actually the horse in front of the cart. The Trump administration actually, through their Health and Human Services Department, issued a final rule that just came out last November that would allow states to submit importation program proposals, which is what this bill is allowing our state to develop that proposal to submit to the federal government for them to approve for us to get the waiver. So this is exactly the order that we should be proceeding in. First step was for Health and Human Services at the federal level and the FDA to approve this ability of states and tribes to develop a program and then to apply for the waiver. So in order for our state to expand the program that was passed in 2019, we have to do this step next, is to allow our state, our expansion of that program that we passed before, so that they can write up the proposal for the federal government to then give us the waiver. So we're doing this in exactly the right order, at exactly the right time, so that we can be ready, along with the state of Florida and a whole lot of other states that are doing this exact same thing right now. So I urge an aye vote.
Representative Lynch.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And due to rules, the ranking Republican member on this committee was not able to speak to this. bill, but I will share his sentiments with you, and he is in favor of this bill. Thank you.
Seeing no further discussion, Representative Holtuff.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I want to help the Chamber alleviate some of their concerns because I think this is a proactive bill. But love or hate President Trump, I will tell you he was spot on many health care issues. For example, Operation Warp Speed is where we're at today with millions of Americans being vaccinated. I believe now with 3 vaccines that are out there across the entire world. Additionally, he led the way on this initiative where he said, hey, if we can get cheaper, pharmaceuticals, then we can lower the cost for Americans. And that was trumpeted for many, many years. And this is merely an attempt, I believe, this bill, correct me if I'm wrong, bill sponsor, this is merely an attempt to, at the state level, close the loop on that and be ready to take advantage of that opportunity. So if the bill sponsor would just confirm that, I am going to be a unanimous yes for the efforts of our predecessors at the national level in leadership to move health care forward for impactful and meaningful legislation. Thank you.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the passage of House Bill 123, or Senate Bill 123. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed? The Senate Bill 123 passes. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title to Senate Bill 66.
Senate Bill 66 by Senator Lee, also Representative Michaelson Jenet, concerning juvenile diversion programs.
Representative Michaelson Jenet.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Senate Bill 66 and the committee report.
To the committee report.
In the Judiciary Committee, we added 2 amendments. One amendment made sure that this bill aligned appropriately with Senate Bill 59 and didn't cause conflicts as they both move through the bodies. And Senate Bill 5 gave the option for people to opt out of demographic information. I ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion on the committee report? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of the committee report for Senate Bill 66. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. The ayes have it.
Thank you.
To the bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senate Bill 66 is a outgrowth of Senate Bill 19108, where we completely remodeled how we did our juvenile diversion here in Colorado. This is a continuing growth in order of spreading the opportunity to be consistent across diversion programs. I ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of Senate Bill 66. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title to Senate Bill 75.
Senate Bill 75 by Senators Gardner and Janal, also Representatives Tipper and Young, concerning supported decision-making agreements for adults with disabilities and in connection therewith authorizing such agreements as an alternative for supplement to a guardianship.
Representative Tipper.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Senate Bill 75 and the Judiciary Committee report.
To the report, committee report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In Judiciary, so the context of this bill is that it allows individuals adults with disabilities, intellectual disabilities, to enter into what are called supportive decision-making agreements. And in committee, some of the struggles that we had were tensions between the elder law section of the bar and the disability law section of the bar, and concerns around some language that we were inadvertently creating fiduciary duties or elevating a person to person in position to trust for the purposes of the statute. So the amendments in Judiciary were to clarify that language. And while we got through about 90% of them, there were 2 that came up that we said that we would do on the House floor. So with that, I move Amendment L00102, the Judiciary Committee report.
The amendment has been moved.
And I ask that it be properly
and will be displayed.
So the amendment is before us. Please proceed.
The amendment is before us. Please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, just two quick clarifying things. We wanted to make clear that it does not create a fiduciary duty or a contractual duty, so that's the first line of the amendment, and that civil and criminal liability may be applicable rather than is applicable. We didn't want to imply that there was some sort of strict liability. In other words, nothing disturbs the current civil and criminal systems that apply to individuals who are victims of fraud, for example, or theft, for example. With that, I ask for a yes vote on Amendment L0102, the Judiciary Committee report.
Is there any further discussion on Amendment L010? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of L010. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. The amendment passes. To the committee report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move the Judiciary Committee, I ask the Judiciary Committee report be adopted.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of the committee report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those
Aye.
opposed say no. Committee report passes. To the bill. Representative Young.
It's an honor to serve with you, Madam Chair.
It's an honor to serve with you. Thank you.
This bill provides individuals with a disability or older adults an alternative or an addition to guardianship or other legal arrangements, allowing them to find the least restrictive path to decision-making. For many individuals and families, this will not be a path that they will choose. They will choose guardianship or other alternatives. This bill expands the possibilities for individuals with disabilities to find success with the support that they identify they need to maintain their decision-making and independence in order to ensure the integrity of their health, safety, welfare, and financial affairs. This is a totally voluntary agreement with a supportive community. Individuals choose the supporters they want in their team that looks out for their best interests and personal safety. The team helps the individual understand the issues they face and the choices they can make. Supported decision-making as defined in this bill means the process in which an adult with a disability or older adult has made or is making decisions by using friends, family members, professionals, and other people that the adult with a disability trusts to help understand the issues and choices they have, answer questions, provide explanations in a language that the individual understands, or facilitate the exercise of decisions regarding the individual's day-to-day health, safety, welfare, or financial affairs. In the end, the decision-making power remains with the adult. It totally remains with them. This is an important additional tool for individuals with disabilities and older adults to maintain their independence. I urge an aye vote.
Representative Tipper.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wanted to add that this really is about individual rights, this bill. It's about ensuring that individuals with a disability, intellectual or not, can take intermediary steps rather than having to go all the way to guardianship or conservatorship. Because once you lose those rights or relinquish those rights, they're really hard to get back. And right now you have a community that is operating with third parties, for example, a bank, a car dealership, and the reality is some of those third parties don't necessarily appreciate that that individual can still make decisions, can still communicate information. So this supportive decision-making agreement codifies a practice that gives validity to it so that individual can go with their supportive decision maker to purchase a car, and that car dealership can rely on that agreement and know that they're not violating any laws by having a conversation about financials in front of the supportive decision maker. And you can show them a copy of the agreement and refer to the place in the statute. My gratitude to Senator Gardner and the Senate. This bill came out of the Senate unanimously, and with that, we ask for your support.
Representative Larson, sorry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, I rise in support of this bill. This is a very important bill, and I know it's something that sort of flies below the radar, but the intellectual and developmental disability community is a very diverse community, and indeed guardianship will be probably the right answer for a lot of folks, but there are so many people that really can be far more autonomous than that. And the paradigm in the IDD community is always to maximize autonomy and give people the most power they have to live their lives as freely and independently as possible. This is really a great third way for people that don't necessarily need to be in guardianship, but don't necessarily want to be, or their families don't want them to be entirely autonomous. So this is really creating a great third option, and it's long overdue. So members, I urge strong support of this, and thank you to both bill sponsors for bringing this. Will do a lot of good.
Seeing no further discussions on this bill, the question before us is the passage of Senate Bill 75. All those in favor say say aye. All those opposed say no. Senate Bill 75 passes.
Mr. Gregorio, please read the title of Senate Bill 124.
Senate Bill 124 by Senator Lee, also Representative Weissman, concerning the creation of a Class II felony offense when the death of a person is caused by a participant without deliberation in the course of the commission of specified felony offenses.
Representative Weissman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Senate Bill 124. There is no committee report.
To the bill.
Members, SB 124 aligns mental state requirements with appropriate punishment for offenses that are set forth in Part 1 of Article 3 of Title 18 of our statutes. In so doing, Senate Bill 124 creates severe punishment of mandatory DOC time up to 48 years in addition to other punishments that may be sentenced depending on the offender's conduct. It is the rare bill that we hear in judiciary that wins the support of both defense attorneys and individual elected DAs, some of them, and Americans for Prosperity, but Senate Bill 124 is that bill. It had bipartisan support out of the Senate for that reason. I ask for your support on Senate Bill 124.
Is there any further discussion? Representative Carver.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We heard considerable testimony on this bill in judiciary. There is a split in the district attorneys. Some support the bill, some do not. And the testimony we received in response to Q&A, what I was trying to understand is what criminal acts, criminal involvement in wrongdoing that results in death would this bill impact? Because right now, under felony murder, you get life in prison if you were involved in a felony and somebody died. This bill would take most of those circumstances under felony murder and change the sentencing range from as low as 16 years up to 48 years. From 16 years to 48 years. And so in that Q&A, one of the cases that came forward was a sexual assault that had occurred in El Paso County a number of years ago, and the victim died as a result of the attack. DNA was later utilized to identify the assailant, but because of the passage of statute of limitations on the sexual assault, they were looking at how to charge a felony and didn't believe that the premeditated part of first-degree murder, with the defendant refusing to talk, and it was somewhat of a cold case, they ended up charging the individual with felony murder. And under current law, he was convicted and is serving the rest of his time in prison, again, for the sexual assault and murder. But if we were now under this bill, he would not be facing life in prison. It would be 16 to 48 years. I also want to raise another case that happened in Mesa County. 9-year-old girl found unconscious, later died. The defendant was apprehended with chloroform, with child pornography videos, some involving the 9-year-old girl. And in evaluating the evidence, there was not sufficient to show the first-degree murder, but was charged with felony murder and got life. But under this bill, would only be facing 16 to 48. So that is the consequence in understanding what is the consequence of passing this bill. And I'm certainly not saying that there aren't examples, since this covers a range of behavior, where a lesser punishment might be appropriate.
Members, excuse me, Representative Carver. Members, can you please take any conversations to the side? It's getting quite loud. Thank you.
But because this bill sweeps pretty broadly in changing the punishment to a Class 2 felony, again, to include serious criminal activity that results in death, and to provide a punishment as low as 16 years, I believe is inappropriate, does not do justice to the victim's family, the victim being dead, and therefore I urge a no vote on the bill.
Representative Holtorf.
Thank you, Madam Assistant Majority Leader, Madam Chair. I rise before all of you, my esteemed colleagues, with great concern. And my concern comes from this body chipping away at the tools in a district attorney's toolbox. Now, we know that felony murder could be a life sentence. But under that, do those people serve a life sentence? Unless it says a life sentence without parole, then in many cases, those individuals can go before their parole boards, and those years later, based on their good behavior, they can still seek to be released from their crimes. But when we do this, when we continue to take tools, and we took tools out of the DA's toolbox last year when we repealed the death penalty, a tool that very rarely was used, but sure was used to get people to come to the table because of the onerous level of that charge. This, too, is another one of those tools. And if you do strip this away through this legislation, then those district attorneys lose one more tool. Now, if a person chooses not to cooperate, if a person chooses not to plea bargain, and for those of us that have been to court and plea bargained, I'll raise my hand. Been there, done that. Okay, go ahead, start your research. Get in there, opposition researchers. Give you a little research project now.
To the bill, please, Representative Walter.
To the bill, absolutely to the bill. This allows for that negotiation, that plea bargain, and allows for pressure to be put on those criminals to say that if you cooperate with us and help the case, then we'll look at doing this. And most district attorneys are very good about this. But if you don't, then you have this charge. But with this particular legislation, you take that away. You take that away. Is that a good thing? I would argue no. The number of instances that this bill addresses can probably be counted on one hand. I'd like to know. I'll ask the bill sponsor. How many times has this been applied in an unfavorable way? And contrast that to how many times it's been applied in a manner that actually has allowed for justice to be done. And for the victims to have their situation resolved by the Justice Department to actually provide justice to the citizens that are out there that are being victimized by crime and criminals who conduct criminal acts. And something to this level, I will tell you, felony murder, that is a heinous act. Where you're either directly or indirectly involved in that, that is a heinous act. In fact, it's at the top of the list. So I have some questions I've offered to the bill sponsor, and I truly am concerned with this type of legislation and further legislation that continues to take tools out of the toolboxes of our judicial department.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, Representative Luck.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In all candor, I am struggling with this particular bill. I think that our job is largely to balance a lot of different interests, and I am struggling. That being said, I did receive a letter from a woman. She is herself from Aurora, but the crime of which she speaks happened in my district. And so she would like this letter read, and so to honor her, I am going to read this. My name is Jeanette Orchard. On May 22nd, 2018, my 76-year-old father, who I call Pop, came home to a burglary in progress. He was beaten, strangled, and then the murderers attempted to hide the crime by lighting several fires, including burning Pop's body. My then 80-year-old mother had been at a water aerobics class, so when she came home to see the house on fire, her whole world was literally going up in flames. She had to stand on the street, wrapped in a towel, because she was in a bathing suit, the only clothes she had left. When the officers released the remains of the house to us, the stench of burned flesh permeated the entryway so horrifically that I didn't need to see crime scene photos to know exactly where Pop's body had been. My family became victims of homicide, but also victims of arson, burglary, and the desecration of Pop's body. We had to have the funeral with an empty casket because the coroner took so long with the autopsy. When we finally got the remains, I was the only member of my family to insist on seeing Pop one last time before burial. The mortician begged me not to do it. He was having such a hard time with it himself. I saw what these criminals did to Pop. I went home after the funeral and looked up the criteria for a capital case and was actually comforted that we still had the option at that time to sentence a person to death in Colorado. For the first time in my life, I felt that someone had done something to us deserving of death. As if this ordeal were not enough, shortly after the funeral, the sheriff announced there had been an arrest of one of their own officers because he had robbed the crime scene. I and my family then had to deal with the courts for the first time. Victims are too frequently disregarded and abused by the legal system. I watched in horror while the DDA refused to press charges for crimes against at-risk adults, even though the officer had literally stepped over my father's burned body, recognizable as an old man by his gray mustache. I saw the sentence as an insulting slap on the wrist, but at least by pleading guilty, he did spare us that trial. The experiences we had because of the officer's crimes brutally re-victimized my entire family. We learned how agonizing going to court is and how writing and reading victim impact statements forces the victims to relive their trauma. We also feared that the officer's crimes meant we would never get justice for my parents or ourselves. My bizarre relationship with the felony murder law. You may think it's strange, but in this time when I and my family had been hit by a crime on top of a multifaceted nightmare crime, I researched the laws that would apply to our case. I had taken a law class in college and worked briefly in law enforcement. I think law is both fascinating and frustrating. I absolutely hate legal mumbo-jumbo. Laws that are clear as mud, contradict themselves, go in circles, and can and are interpreted differently by every person that reads them. Other laws are written clear as bell and have a beauty to them. CRS Section 18.3.102(1)(b) and D and 3 became something I read on multiple occasions. It was just comforting to know that there is justice for me and my family in Colorado law, if only we could find the killers. In September 2020, we finally got an arrest. And guess what? It turns out that the alleged murderer, arsonist, burglar, etc. had been thinking a lot about the felony murder law too. The arrest warrant affidavit shows text messages to more than one recipient in which the accused worried about going to prison forever. Quote, "Yeah, I'm kind of having trouble focusing on anything else other than the rest of my life behind bars, and it's really starting to bug me out." End quote. Do you know how you recognize a good, effective law? When it gives victims a sense of justice, and when it bugs out the criminals. So leave it alone. It's doing its job. Felony murder is not the equivalent of second-degree murder. I was raised by a grade school teacher, so I'll try to keep this simple. 1 + 1 = 2, and 2 is greater than 1. 1 + 2 = 3, and 3 is greater than 1, and greater than 2. Easy. For example, drunk driving is a crime, a misdemeanor. Manslaughter is a crime, a Class 4 felony. Killing someone while drunk driving becomes the combination crime vehicular manslaughter, a Class 3 felony, which has a penalty greater than either drunk driving or manslaughter alone. And this is right, both mathematically and morally, because the perpetrator is committing multiple crimes simultaneously. The fact that the penalty jumps up multiple classes, not just a little, between drunk driving and vehicular manslaughter is also right, because the loss of human life is no small thing.
Representative Luck, one moment. Members, I'm hearing that folks are having a hard time hearing down there, so please, again, if you are having conversations, please step out on the sides.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Felony murder is a combination crime, a F2, F4 felony that is devastating on its own, plus the loss of human life, F1 or F2 murder. So the combined crime of felony murder needs to be a felony 1. Causing death because of commission of a crime obviously must have a harsher penalty than the penalty of the commission of the crime alone. To do otherwise is to completely disregard the value of human life. It is to say that it doesn't matter that criminal activity turns deadly. There will be no consequence. In our case, we do not have a simple 1 felony + 1 murder = Class 1 felony murder and life without parole. We got slapped with an entire felony buffet. Add to that the fact that the accused deliberately targeted the elderly. The penalty of life without parole is essential in prosecuting felony murder. The man arrested in our case is already a repeat offender. He has 2 convictions I know of and is currently serving time for assaulting a girlfriend. A few weeks ago, my family had to go through the ordeal of deciding if we go for the maximum sentence and roll the dice with a jury or offer a plea deal. We all want to make certain that no one else gets put through what we have endured. A major part of our discussion was what difference if he gets sentenced to life without parole or if he pleads guilty to enough crimes on the list that he goes away for most of his life. The difference to a victim is which kind of hell will you endure. Trial, which is going to be painful and drawn out, might win and get the sentence life without parole, but carries risk of acquittal. or plea deal, which may be less painful in the short term, but means that the victim has to spend that entire sentence constantly watching for appeals, parole hearings, etc., and relive the trauma every time they have to be heard at these hearings. Criminals do not cooperate with prosecutors willingly. They do not negotiate plea deals because they suddenly care about the victims. They do what is in their own self-interest, which is why it is so important that prosecutors have a potent penalty that actually has the ability to rattle a hardened criminal. This bill victimizes victims. SB 21-124 has already had a deleterious impact on Pop's felony murder case and has caused me and my family no end of stress and anger. The arraignment was supposed to take place on April 5th, but a motion conveniently showed up which allows the defendant to wait and see the outcome of this vote before he enters his plea. I suspect that he is waiting to see if you will be the ones to take the thing he is most worried about off the table, rather than him needing to negotiate to get rid of life without parole. Do you know how to recognize a bad bill? When it gives hope to the kind of man who would target an elderly couple to rob, then strangle and burn an old man, and when it causes heartache to innocent victims. Choice and accountability. I spent a number of years teaching young children at church. There was a very simple object lesson we used. We would get a long, fat stick or a yardstick, and on one end in bold letters write choice, and on the other end write consequences. We would then ask a child to come and pick up choice. Then we would ask what happens regarding consequences. It was fun to see when the lesson actually clicked, and they understood that when you make a choice, it comes with consequences attached. We'd sometimes even invite them to shake the stick to see if the consequences would fall off. Nope. When they made a choice, they were stuck with the consequences. Senator Lee, Representative Weissman, and their co-sponsors portray to you that changes need to be made to the felony murder law because innocent people were getting convicted to life without parole. This is incorrect. I have a sign I like that says, "Everything happens for a reason. Sometimes the reason is that I am stupid and make bad choices." The ex-convicts who testified did not get sentenced to life without parole because the current felony murder law is a bad law. They were convicted because they made bad choices. They chose to be active participants in a felony, a crime where the risk of someone getting hurt or killed is high, and then someone did die. Today, you are being asked to cast a vote which will repeal one of the strongest laws Colorado has. I implore you to study our history. The first time the death penalty was removed, Coloradans brought it back after only 4 years. The second time it was removed, they brought it back after only 2 years. There are devastating consequences to a society where the strongest laws of the land are removed. I also implore you to consider who is going to be most affected by the consequences of your choice. All you do is say yay or nay, but on the other end of that stick are some really big consequences, especially to the victims. I read somewhere that there have been only 24 felony murder convictions sentencing life without parole since 2017. In my father's murder alone, there are 27 people legally defined as homicide victims by Colorado's Victims' Rights Act. My murdered dad, his wife, 2 brothers, 5 kids, and 18 grandkids. When you add the great-grandkids, in-laws, and nieces and nephews, you add another 38 for a total of 65 family members affected by this one felony murder. I am an independent because I do not believe in voting blindly along party lines. I implore you to think before you obliterate the most potent tool in a prosecutor's arsenal. Think before you decide to undermine past convictions. Think before you create more pain and trauma for the victims of felony murder. Think before you allow felony murderers to create new victims. And her request finally is to vote no on this bill. Thank you.
Representative Weissman.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I think I think it's going to be necessary to straighten out the record on some of what we've just heard up here. I don't believe that at any point I've ever said anything about innocent people getting convicted or sentenced. The only thing that I've talked about and the only thing that I will continue to talk about is the proportionality of punishment. And I want it to be very clear that we are not at any point in this debate saying that there should not be punishment for people who do some of these things that we've heard about, which are serious, even hideous things. We heard an example of somebody who had a history. Members, we have what's called a habitual sentencing statute in our state, and it provides for up to 3 times the top of the presumptive range or 4 times the top of the presumptive range for certain offenses if charged and proven by the prosecution. That law is completely unchanged by this bill. We've heard about the role of victims in the criminal justice process, which is something that I take very seriously after 4.5 years on judiciary, and none of the rights in the Victim Rights Act pursuant to our Constitutional Victim Rights Amendment are impacted by this bill. In our law, we have 6 different bases of charging M1 liability. 6. The other 5 are completely unimpacted, and data shows, and I have shared this data with at least one member, and I will gladly share it with others, we're not even impacting the most used. The most commonly charged bases of M1 liability are what's called after deliberation and extreme indifference, and those are completely unimpacted. There was a reference to studying our history. Well, members, the history of this law dates back to church law in the 1200s or 1300s. It is older than our state. It is older than our country. You can find it written down in Latin in Middle England. The American Law Institute recommended abolishing the felony murder doctrine in 1962. England, whence we inherited this doctrine, ended it in 1957. Other states have already modified it. Kentucky, not exactly a liberal state, Kentucky punishes this by a sentence of 20 to 50 years. Not life. We're talking about 16 to 48, pretty close to 20 to 50. We heard about a couple of examples, serious offenses that should be punished from a couple of counties. You know, where I hear that somebody has a knockout agent like chloroform, I start thinking about intent, and I start thinking about charging other theories, to say nothing of all of the other crimes that can and should be charged in those circumstances. As to the situation in El Paso County, I don't know why other theories of M1 were not charged. It should also be clear that the offense that we're talking about goes along with what are called predicate offenses. Serious offenses, all of which should be punished, which can be punished under our law, unchanged by this bill, which can be punished under our law for decades. Members, we also have in our law judicial discretion for consecutive sentencing. There are some cases in our law, depending on the facts, where we have mandatory consecutive sentencing. To the example that our colleague from El Paso County gave about a case that had apparently been a cold case for 40, perhaps going on 45 years, in an egregious case, the judge can and should sentence to the top of the range, 48 years, even if that was the only count going on there. If somebody was 20 when that offense was committed, 40, 45 years later, now you add 48 years, that person is going to die in prison. It is true that we heard considerable testimony in committee. Almost all of it was in support of the bill. There were 2 witnesses opposed, 2 elected district attorneys, and it is their prerogative to oppose this bill. 4 or 5 or 6 elected district attorneys have chosen to support this bill. The DA's council has no position because their membership is divided, because what we have set forth here is a pretty measured reform to a very flawed doctrine. You know, we heard some about what the law as it's written now can do. I'm going to share some other things that it does. This is from the fiscal note. Looking back a couple years, there are 42 instances of conviction on this offense. In our state, which is a couple of percent African American population, the fiscal note identifies that more than 25% of the individuals sentenced here were African American. Another analysis indicates that where this was the only theory of liability charged, 79.5% of those individuals were people of color. And as to convictions, it's 65.5%. So members, among other things, we have a doctrine here that is profoundly problematic in its application and profoundly disparate against people of color. And for all of that, we are not proposing to repeal it, very far from it. We are proposing to align this offense with the consequences for murder 2, for knowingly contributing to the death of another person, but not with deliberation, not with intent, not with extreme indifference. You know, one of the witnesses who testified against the bill actually said there should be consequences for people who commit predicate offenses that are very, very likely to lead to the death of another person. And the judgment of the bill is that that statement is right. The judgment of the bill is to agree with that position and to assess the most correctly aligned level of punishment in our statutes, which is 16 to 48 years at the discretion of the judge, again, running along with other consequences, other sentences that can be meted out, perhaps consecutively. So members, when we all come in here, we inherit, we inherit the law that has been handed down to us, in some cases since statehood. This is one of them. Got a copy of the statute from the 1880s, written a bit differently than we write things now, but the effect is the same. The judgment of 124 is simply to make a pretty small adjustment so that the punishment fits the nature of the offense. If any of us go in our district, walk down the main street of our town, and we ask our constituents, if somebody is proven to have intentionally, deliberately killed somebody, should there be the consequences of life in prison? I think a lot of people would say yes, and this bill does not change that. This bill does not change that. If, however, you say to people in your district, should you be able to get life in prison without it being proven that you killed somebody, or even sought or intended to, I think a lot of people would be surprised by that. That is what the law in Colorado does right now. Life in prison without the possibility of parole. There is no such thing as life with a possibility of parole, to another comment made by one of our colleagues. Not for 35 years have we had that in our law. What this bill says is you can face the most severe consequences if it is proven that you took somebody's life intentionally and with deliberation, and that we should not equate other circumstances, severe as they are, deserving of punishment as they are, with those most severe circumstances. So members, I ask for your support.
Representative Buckenfield.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's an honor to serve with you.
Honored to serve with you, sir.
Folks, as you heard from this Aurora constituent in her letter that was read by Representative Luck, what you heard was that some folks broke into her father's home and he surprised them during a burglary. Now, what you heard from my colleague was that if you're not the trigger man or the person stabbed or the person who choked someone to death, you shouldn't get the same penalty. What if you had the opportunity to have a little passion for the victim and the family, and you could have told the story? People who have tragedies in their life and they lose a loved one, they want to hear that story. They want to know what happened to that loved one. But no, this cold-hearted criminal decided that they were going to just button the lip, not cooperate. As you heard in her letter, very seldom is this statute utilized. It's utilized by prosecutors when you have a cold-hearted criminal who has no compassion for the victim, who won't tell other folks who the perpetrators that they were working with when they committed the crime. They won't tell the person who committed the murder. The DA doesn't have enough evidence to prove that this person committed the murder, but he or she was there. He or she could have some heart, some compassion, and just come clean. Come clean and tell the story. And when they don't, then the DA reaches for the maximum penalty for that person that they can prove. And in that case, it's felony murder. Life without parole. If you didn't kill the person, then spill the beans. If you did kill the person, spill the beans. That's what they chose not to do. They choose to re-victimize the victim and their families. And this doesn't go away overnight. The pain, the anguish, the broken heart of not only the children, the spouse, the grandchildren, lingers on the rest of their lives. And if the person's 20 years old, they're out on the street at my age. Okay? They're back out on the street. They've had an opportunity now to find God, which most of them do, and claim they're going to be upstanding citizens. But here's what I ask you to keep in mind. In a small town, when you walk down the street and you look across that street and you see the perpetrator, and I don't care if it's 35, 40 years later, how do you think that victim's going to feel? Now, I would ask you to vote no on this bill. The district attorneys are doing a great job in how they're managing this statute to the best interest of the people of the state and to the victims. And we need to keep these criminals' feet to the fire. They need to come clean. And then the DA will give them some consideration. But until then, don't let up. I ask for a no vote.
Representative Lynch.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's an honor to serve with you.
It's an honor to serve with you.
So I'm one of two non-lawyers in the Judiciary Committee. So there's a lot of times, a lot of this doesn't make sense to me. And I'm just going to be honest. M1, M5, I thought they're talking about BMWs. I don't know. And I got to tell you, this sounds like a good idea, that what we're doing as a legislative body is correcting some injustices that we see in our judicial system. So I want to give a perspective to you from a non-lawyer, non-technical, really what the voters of this state are going to hear, okay? And that is, combined with revoking the death penalty, this body is saying it's time to be easy on crime. That's the layman's interpretation. At a time when we've got shootings left and right, when we've got crime rising at a ridiculous rate, we're saying as legislators that it's time for us to be easier on these criminals, and let's take away the tools from our district attorneys, of which I'll add, though we heard from two that were against it, those are the only two we heard from. And I'll tell you, across this state, and I don't know the exact count, but it's a pretty close tie for DAs that are for this and DAs that are against this. And a couple other points. I don't care what Kentucky did. I don't care the historical nature of this. I care about my state. I care about my district. And I care about what's the information that has come in to me from my constituents that say, now's not the time for this. It's out of control. Why are we taking these tools away from our district attorneys? The other people that talked against this bill, it wasn't just two witnesses. We had victims' rights groups that came in that also spoke against this bill. So back to the layman's terms, this is what we're saying to the citizens of Colorado, that now, in the middle of all these crimes and everything that's going on in our state, we want to be proactive in being easier on criminals. I vote a hearty no on this bill.
Representative Gray.
So I'm one of just a couple people in this room that have sent people to prison. I've done it a lot of times. It was what I did for a living for a while. And I'm not going to yell, and we shouldn't be yelling. The victims don't want us to be yelling. The defendants don't want us to be yelling. The DAs don't want us to be yelling. And the defense attorneys don't want us to be yelling. We should be talking thoughtfully. When I first heard about this bill, I wasn't excited about it. I understand there are people who are very close to me, including people who serve in this building, for whom this is a tool that was used to attempt to bring them justice. But what I'll also say is that our justice system should be smart, not hard. Smart is better than hard. And I've never used this trope before, but I'm going to do it. I wasn't planning on coming down here today. But I don't come down when we got a bill about ranching. I don't come down when we got a bill about oil and gas development or being a business owner. I don't come down for those things. But I have done this for a living. And the way it's been described today is nothing close to the accuracy. It's nothing close to accurate about how this system actually works. It's not close. There are horrible, evil days. There are horrible, evil events. And there are also people who made a big mistake, but it shouldn't be an end of your life mistake based on what somebody else did. And our system should be smart enough to be able to distinguish between the two things. I'm not going to sit here and make up scenarios for you. I'm not going to read letters of things that have happened in the past. But there are people who have committed this crime who had no intention of doing anything heinous. They had intention of committing a crime, and they should face the consequences for that crime. But it's a much lighter crime. And there are people who participate in things where they intended to commit a heinous crime and they didn't happen to be the person who committed the act. And our system should be smart enough and fair enough to recognize both of those things at the same time. We don't have to act like the person who thought they were just going to steal something out of a sporting goods store is the same thing as the person who went planning to murder someone, but the other person decided they were going to be the one who carried the gun, but it was part of the plan the whole time. We don't have to be that dumb. We can be smarter than that. And obviously I trust our district attorneys. I am a former deputy district attorney. Again, I've sent more people to more years in prison than anyone in this room except for maybe one. I've sentenced people to hundreds of years of prison in my life. But it doesn't mean that our laws need to be inflexible, that they can't be smart. And I'll tell you something, if the ceiling on what we were doing was lower, I would have a real concern with this bill. But let me tell you something, ask yourself if you've ever met somebody who coming off of a 48-year sentence. Don't imagine it. Don't ask, because I have. Ask yourself, do you know what it's like to come off of a 48-year sentence? And are there crime sprees being done by somebody coming off of 48? Plus, to Representative Weissman's point, 1 second. Theo would like another snack. Plus, there's the opportunity in heinous cases where almost any time that you would earn a 48-year sentence, you could get a consecutive sentence on another crime, and judges are good at that. So anyway, he's fine. So just know, I read and thought about this a lot, but it's also something I've done for a living, and it doesn't it doesn't frighten me. It doesn't frighten me as somebody who has worked as a prosecutor in the criminal justice system. And when we do these things, I mean, we have to make the laws for everything, right? So like I listen to other people when it's a water bill. I listen to other people when it's, ranch bill about ag. I don't do that. Just know that this is as complicated as that is, and this is not taking away consequences from the people who do the most evil acts. It is allowing for lesser consequences for people who had a bad idea, did something wrong, but wasn't actually murderous. And our system should allow for that. Our system should not say anybody in this situation should be treated the same. Our system should allow for that flexibility, have serious consequences for people who do really bad things and less serious consequences for people who don't do as bad things. And also, if you think a 16-year sentence isn't a big deal, too, like go talk to some inmates, go talk to some people who come out of prison about what a 16-year prison sentence looks like, and that's the low end of what we're talking about here. But it just gives us the ability to treat people based on the way they act, not put them all in a lump. And that's not wrong, that's right. That's us being right and responsible to the people who we govern. Thank you.
Representative Sandridge.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think I'm still trying to get my head wrapped around this whole thing, because this is obviously political. People are given their own two sides. The way I read it, if you commit a heinous murder, you still get over 40 years. And the people who are giving this time period actually looked at the evidence of the case and said it was heinous and gave them 40 years. I'm also wrapping my head around this. There's other circumstances where, most of us haven't seen murders. I've seen a ton of them in my different professions, and there is a variance of intent. There's a variance of age. There's a variance of aggression. And so it's not always cut and dry. There's not every single murderer isn't somebody who is raised in a certain way and is a straight up evil person. There's certain circumstances. That's why I'm kind of getting my head wrapped around some of the testimonies. You can still get over 40 years, and you allow a person who has seen the evidence, heard the evidence, to dictate that. I think anytime you restrict or put people in certain categories is difficult, especially with murder. So I'm sitting here listening. I'm still making judgments. I honestly believe that this bill does give a remedies for the heinous murder of 14 years or over 40 years, but it also gives a person that's listening to the evidence and making the decision, and a person who feels that they maybe shouldn't get 40 years or they should get less years, allows them to get less years. Anytime you put certain mandates on a sentence, it is legislators who've never heard the sentence, most of them have never dealt with a murder, forcing people who are hearing the evidence to think a certain way. So again, I'm still getting my head wrapped around it, but I keep on hearing, if you do a heinous murder, you still get over 40 years. So I'll keep on thinking. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Representative Carver.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And, in all of these instances of felony murder, there is an individual who is dead as a result of the criminal behavior. And so whether it is 16 years or 48 years, the person who has died as the result of the criminal behavior has 0 years. Their life has been wrongfully taken. And so that has, from a criminal justice standpoint, with emphasis on justice, justice for the victim who has had their life taken, justice for the families of the victims who have been deprived of their family member. That's really what is at the core of this debate. What is a just sentence? And again, the DAs are split about half and half, which I just confirmed. And so it's not specific to the number that testified. Some testified for, some testified against. But the DAs themselves are split about half and half. And I'd also want, again, just to go to the facts. What kinds of cases are we talking about that this bill would impact? And so I want to reference a 2019 Arapahoe County case where an 18-year-old young man was killed over vape juice pods. And he was charged with felony murder because the robbery qualified as an inherently dangerous felony, where even though robbery was the intent, the victim ended up dying. Now, in that case, because while the victim was 18, the person who did the robbery and was complicit in the death was a juvenile, they got life with the possibility of parole after 40 years. But had they been a few months older, they would have gotten the life without parole. And so with the juvenile status, that's already in current law. But I reference this case because, again, it's an example of a decision made to engage in inherently dangerous criminal behavior where serious injury or death to the victim is very high. And it's that instance where we are debating what the appropriate sentence should be under Colorado law. And for that reason, I ask for a no vote on this bill.
Representative Sullivan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think I'm probably up here talking because I have an idea of what the victims might go through in these types of things. I mean, just hearing the story that the representative from El Paso County talked about, that young man that she talked about was a high schooler. He was murdered at approximately the same time of the STEM school shooting. He was also shot and killed by another high schooler. His parents haven't been down here and gotten a day. They haven't named off any parts of highways for him. There's nothing on Mars in his name. But those parents both lost the exact same thing. See inequity of the time and the place and being another victim. And that's why, my daughter told me that, that's why they call us victims, Dad. Talking about prisons, I'm in a prison cell right now, and, you can't see it. Some people can. I mean, those coworkers of mine that I worked with for 26 years that won't have anything to do with me, who won't return my calls, will move away from me when they see me. They certainly see the prison cell that surrounds me, because I got a life sentence the day that Alex was murdered. And in this case, dealing with multiple perpetrators, I can't even imagine. I mean, I remember that day when we were terrified about how Alex must be feeling and what was going on at that time. And that was only one person doing all of that to him. I just can't imagine what you must be thinking if there were multiple people who were doing something like this to your child, your daughter, your husband, and then you have to deal with this, after, the fact. And maybe only one of them was the ringleader in it, or was the one who actually perpetrated, but the rest of them were there. And then you have to deal with them afterwards. And to talk about, people who came down to testify. This rips me apart every day. I mean, I can just feel, I am no longer living, folks. I am dying every day. And when we have conversations like this, and believe me, I've already had this conversation. When we opened up the newspaper and saw the headline there that says he's, got a life sentence and he didn't kill anybody. You can believe that was a Sunday morning conversation in my house between me and my wife. The sponsors come over and want to talk to me about this at 10 minutes to 9 in the morning. Yeah, how about a little pain and suffering with your coffee in the morning, Representative? How about a little bit of that? Because we've got this we want to talk about. Yeah, and I get it. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm trying to make sure that these people don't get themselves into these situations. I understand that 2:30 to 5:30 every single day is the most dangerous time in the United States. That's the time when people are making bad decisions. I get it. That's why I'm trying to, provide services into those areas so that those people have something to do. So that's not the decision they make, is to go rob that store or steal that car. That's why I'm fighting so hard to take the most dangerous things I think that they could put in their hands out of their hands, so we don't have that stuff happening. But then on the other hand, I understand the part about someone's in the wrong place. Someone got talking, he's got an older brother, an older friend. That's what they decided they were going to do. And that a decision that they made one time shouldn't force them to have to go through this for the rest of their lives. I wish I had a date that this would all be over. I don't. The date this is all over for me is the day I die. It's as clear as that. It's as clear as that. Because I had no idea that this is how painful this was going to be each and every day. I don't have an answer for this. I just don't. But you need to know that in between the two of you that are working on this, there's us in the middle. There's mothers and fathers and brothers and sisters and grandparents. And there's new little people that are going to come up. Alex's little sister told me, we're going to have somebody coming. There's going to be a little person. You can bet your asses I'm going to be telling that little person all about their Uncle Alex. You can bet that's what I'm going to be spending all of my time doing. Telling them how much worse his life or her life is going to be, because she'll never have gotten to meet her Uncle Alex. And we're stuck in the middle of this. And you don't talk about us. I don't know, you guys decide on this.
Is there any further discussion on Senate Bill 124? Seeing Representative Sandridge.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And that is real. I think very few of us, if any, can stand in those shoes. I think we need to recognize a few things. All murders are not like the movies. They're not the smart villain that comes in and has been organizing for years. The true evil person that comes in is just not like the movies. I've driven up on many felony murders. And you see the ringleader who organized this. And then you also see the weak-minded friends that are looking at you going, I thought we were playing a game and we were going to stop right at the edge. But the top guy didn't stop. The 18-year-old that sits back and says, I thought we were just being big men for today. And we were going to take a step back like we've had many times before, and that step didn't take place. And when you see that kid look at you and go, what the hell did I just get myself into by hanging around with these people? I think until you see those people with the shock, the people that were hanging out, just like all of us have, hanging out in a car, driving around on a Friday, talking a bunch of nonsense, and then pull up and one of the people jump out and do something crazy. But then everybody in that car is treated equal. And you want to see some people shocked. You see those kids being shocked. They're just as shocked as you are at that scene. So yeah, I've seen serial killers, I've seen killers, and they have a certain look, and they have but I've seen some of their cronies who've been suckered in, and now their life is ruined forever. So I don't think this bill, like I said, I'm still getting my everything around it. But we keep on bringing up cruel killers. Well, it seems like you still get over 40 years. I think what this bill doesn't really look at them. It looks at the people who maybe, hypothetically, were standing outside of a murder, watching their friend go in and going, I thought we were just jacking around. I thought we were just talking nonsense, like we always have. And now you're in there and something bad happened. And now I'm part of it. I thought I was a big man. I thought we were playing around. And maybe the person that walked in and did the killing, they deserve the 40 years. But the person standing out front saying, and I thought we were just being big man, and I thought we were going to back off like we always did, I think that person may need a second consideration. So, again, I think I'm still getting my arms wrapped around it, but maybe we should also consider the victims, like like Reverend Sullivan said, we need to consider the victims, but we also need to consider everybody associated with it, with these crimes, because there's just more than one person. So, thank you.
Representative Weissman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You know, our colleague from Arapahoe County referred to never having a day, never being able to look forward to a day when the pain would stop. And Representative, I so want for you to have that day, and Terry and Megan, because you deserve it, because you have earned it. Because
Members, if we get quiet down in the chamber, please.
no parent should ever have to say goodbye to their son or daughter. It's supposed to work in the reverse. We're supposed to say goodbye to our parents, not our children. So it's all backwards. And no parent should have to say goodbye to their son or daughter in the way that you did. And given what happened in our city, it would be very understandable. If anybody had chosen to withdraw, to retreat. But that's not what's happening. What's happening, Representative, is that you've come in here, you've leaned in, you've signed up for this place that just hurts you more every day. Because you want to spare people the hurt that you have experienced and that you continue to experience. You want to try to make the community safer. And I have profound respect for that. There is nobody in this place, not 99 other people, not me, who are doing exactly what you are doing, and I want to acknowledge that. And members, one thing that I will never do, notwithstanding I have lived in my city for going on 15 years, one thing that I will never do is put myself on the level of what our colleague from Arapahoe County has suffered, or his family has suffered, or what those other families have suffered. But members, when I run bills here, I do have to bear in mind the experience of my city. One of the most horrific things that has befallen our state happened there in my city, 8 minutes from my front door in 2012. My father lives on the East Coast. He gets up early. He was up before we were that morning. I still remember the call that woke us up. That was a monstrosity. It still is a monstrosity. And I would not be sponsoring this bill if I thought it left fewer tools in the law to address that kind of monstrosity. But those tools are still there. For the victims of that atrocity, there were 2 different charges, neither of which is the one we're talking about. Frankly, I think they were both warranted, and then there were a lot of other charges as well, and those were warranted too, given what happened. So members, I don't for a second pretend that this is an easy conversation. Believe me, if you want to do an easy bill, you don't do this one. And I believe that people do things for which they need to go away for life. I believe that some people cross the lines of decency and this thing that we call society so fundamentally that there is no coming back. Some of those things happened in my city in 2012. The only question in this bill, as in any bill we do on any subject, is where should the line be drawn? With Senate Bill 124, we seek to make a small adjustment in where that line goes. There will still be people who go away for life, and there should be. And then there will be other people who go away for decades, and there should be. I ask for your support.
Representative Bockenfeld.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Chair. I represent a multi-county district. I have one district attorney that supports the bill. I have one district attorney that represents the majority of Arapahoe County that's opposed to the bill. This is an easy vote for me. It's an easy vote because I'm not taking anything away from the district attorney who supports this bill. If he wants to not utilize this law to his advantage, he has the full discretion to do that. But the district attorney, who represents the 18th Judicial District, feels strongly enough that this bill needs to be defeated because he feels that his people, who represent the people, in some cases need that leverage for the reasons I articulated in my previous discussions up here. We're not taking anything away from the district attorneys who don't want to use the statute. They have full discretion, but we are taking away this leverage that district attorneys who oppose this bill want to maintain in order to better represent the people of this state and the victims. Again, I ask for a no vote.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of Senate Bill 124. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. No. Senate Bill 124 passes. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title of Senate Bill 130.
Senate Bill 130 by Senators Holbert and Pedersen, also Representatives Van Winkle and Byrd, concerning authorization for local governments to accept business personal property from taxation.
Representative Van Winkle.
Thank you.
I think we're waiting
Madam
for your...
Chair. Yes, I will
Okay.
talk slowly, but we can pass the committee report in the meantime. So I move the Transportation Local Government Committee report.
Would you like to also move the bill, sir?
Oh, yes. My apologies, Madam Chair. I move Senate Bill 130 and the Transportation Committee report.
To the committee report.
We made a small amendment in committee, and I ask for a yes vote.
Is there any further discussion on the Transportation and Local Government Committee report? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of the Transportation and Local Government Committee report. All those in favor say aye.
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 All of those opposed, no. The committee report passes.
I'll just add.
To the bill, Representative Van Winkle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And in short, this bill has the potential to provide great tax relief for the people of Carlisle, for the business of Carlisle. As you know, many businesses have been shut down or they're operating at, say, 50% capacity, yet they're still paying business personal property tax on 100% of, say, those unused tables at the restaurants or those buildings that they're not using and things like this. So what this bill does is it allows counties, municipalities, and special districts to exempt up to 100% of the business personal property tax that they levy for the 2021 property tax year. It's a tax cut.
Representative Byrd.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And members, this is a great tool for economic development for those cities, special districts, and counties that choose to make use of this. So we made clear that no entity can make a decision to lower business personal property tax for any other organization of local government. Each local government that would opt into this would make that decision for itself. It's limited to 1 year, and definitely one more tool in the toolbox to help fuel our economy and get Colorado back on track. I urge a yes vote.
Is there any further discussion on Senate Bill 130? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of Senate Bill 130. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Senate Bill 130 passes. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that the committee rise and report.
Seeing no objection, the committee will rise and report.
House will come to order. Mr. Gregorio, wait, I have to gavel. House will come to order. Mr. Gregorio, please read the report of the Committee of the Whole.
Mr. Speaker, your Committee of the Whole begs leave to report it is under consideration the following attached bills, being the second reading thereof, and makes the following recommendations thereon. Senate Bill 59 as amended, Senate Bill 66 as amended, Senate Bill 75 as amended, Senate Bill 123, Senate Bill 124, Senate Bill 130 as amended, passed on second reading in order revised and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage.
Representative Ricks. Thank you, Representative Ricks. You've heard the motion. There are no amendments at the desk. The question before us is the adoption of the report of the committee of the whole. Mr. Gregorio, please open the machine, and members, please proceed to vote. Those participating online, Representative Jackson, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Jackson votes yes. Representative Baisley, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Baisley votes no. Representative Soper, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Soper votes no. Representative McLaughlin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative McLaughlin votes yes. Representative Holtorf excused. Please close the machine. With 41 aye votes, 23 no votes, and 1 excuse, the report of the committee of the whole is adopted. That brings us not quite to announcements and introductions. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move to lay over the balance of the calendar until tomorrow, Tuesday, April 13th.
See no objection, the balance of the calendar will be laid over 1 day according to the Majority Leader. Announcements and introductions. While people are thinking about that, we will do conference committee reports.
To the President of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives, your first conference committee appointed on Senate Bill 2179 concerning the sale of...
The conference committee report will be printed in the journal. Printing reports.
The Chief Clerk
Printing
reports.
report will be printed in the journal. Message from the Senate.
Mr. Speaker.
Message from the Senate will be buried in the journal. Representative Harrod.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members of the Appropriations Committee, we will meet tomorrow at 8 a.m. in the Old State Library to hear the bills as seen and printed in your calendars, and any other bills that will be referred will also be heard at this meeting.
Do you want me to add the additional bill or no? The one you're doing? Are you doing that? Okay.
Further announcements and introductions. Seeing none. Majority Leader Escar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, you'll see tomorrow on your calendars that we've got second readings scheduled. I just want to remind everybody this is budget week, and we will not be doing those tomorrow, but we'll lay those over tomorrow to another time. But I just want everybody to be prepared. We're going to gavel in, take care of business, and then not gavel out, but head off to our public caucuses on the budget tomorrow morning. So that's what's on board for tomorrow. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I move that the House stand in recess until later today.
Thank you, Majority Leader Escar. And seeing no objection, the House will stand in recess until later today.